Now for the interview tonight is Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia. Senator Kaine, it's really nice to have you here. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Great to be back, Rachel.
So you intimated in these remarks about Merrick Garland that the Senate may not be proceeding with holding hearings on his nomination because of basically a fundamental disrespect for President Obama, sort of delegitimizing him as a president. What were you getting at there?
Rachel, I think that's a very serious concern. The rationale that the Republicans use, we want to wait till the next president and let the people decide, is what we call in civil rights, and I used to try civil rights cases, a complete pretext. That's not the way it's been done in the past. The Constitution doesn't take away a president or a Senate's powers in the final year of a presidential term. And so they're doing something with this president that they've never done with the 43 presidents that preceded him. My parishioners in my church, my neighbors, my friends in Virginia, they look at it, either it's got to be an attack on the nominee, but we know that's not the case because they announced the blockade before Garland was even nominated, an attack on the legitimacy of the president, or an attack on the legitimacy of the court. There's a lot of concern that this president's nominee has been given second-class treatment, not because of the nominee, but because of the character of the president himself. And that is very, very painful for people to contemplate about the nation's first African-American president, that they wouldn't pay him the respect of having a hearing and having a vote on a nominee in the way they've done with other presidents. Do you think? And so this is a very, very painful perception that's being left by the actions of the Senate, especially in the case of a Supreme Court nomination where the court says equal justice under law engraved in stone over the entry into the court itself.
I'm sorry to have half interrupted you there, sir. Yeah. What I was going to ask is, I mean, raising the issue of this being the first African-American president, that issue of legitimacy, do you think that is the through line that explains the way Republicans and the conservative movement have treated President Obama? Do you think fundamentally it is about race, that there's a racial element to the resistance to him that people should be more explicit in discussing?
Rachel, there is an attack on his legitimacy that I think is just fundamentally different than what's come before. You can attack him on his policies. I have argued with the president over this unauthorized war. But look, they met to decide right when he was inaugurated that their success was going to be trying to stop him from being reelected. You've seen a congressman shout, "You lie," to him on the floor of Congress. You've seen people question whether he was born in the United States, question his faith, question his patriotism. As you recently pointed out, the president sent up a budget this year, and neither budget committee in either house, and I'm on the Senate Budget Committee, would even have a hearing to discuss the president's submitted budget, which has never happened since the Budget Control Act was passed in 1974. And now they're treating his Supreme Court nominee in a manner fundamentally different than they've treated any other presidents before. And so this is a deep concern of an awful lot of people. There is another explanation. A psychologist, there is another explanation, and that it's an attack on the court itself. Just like FDR didn't like what the court was doing, and so he tried to take a 9-member court and expand it statutorily. It's been set at 9 justices since 1869. You could look at what the Republicans are doing here and saying they're artificially trying to maintain a vacancy at 8 rather than 9, to artificially shrink the court and weaken it for more than a year in order to get what they want. I think it's one of those two explanations. Either it's a fundamental attack on the legitimacy of the president, or it's an attack on the independence of the judiciary, and neither make me feel too good.
What did you make today when the Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump released a list today of 11 possible Supreme Court picks of his own? I wonder what you think either of who's on the list or about the fact that he has released this list.
Well, I think, you know what, I'm glad he's released it, Rachel, because I think what we're going to be able to do in this presidential campaign, and Secretary Clinton, I'm confident, will be the nominee, we'll be able to talk about the cases that the court has before us, cases dealing with access to health care for women, immigration rights, the president's proposal to deal with climate change, collective bargaining, the civil rights, for example, voting rights cases are before the court. And in presidential campaigns, usually the court is kind of theoretical. Who might you appoint in the future? But right now we have a vacancy. The court's already deadlocked 3 or 4 times. This vacancy is going to cause problems. And we're going to get a chance to talk about what a Hillary Clinton appointee would do in these fundamental questions and what these 11 individuals will do. I haven't researched him enough to know how to predict that, but I have a feeling, based on everything I've heard from candidate Trump about the way he would approach the court, that we're going to see stark differences that will really matter to the American public.